Hi, my name is Jose Morales, and in today's presentation, I will be talking about consumer credit and the market crash of 1929. In this presentation, I'll be going over what could have been done to avoid the market crash, and if consumer credit wasn't created in the United States, would things have gone any differently? What is consumer credit? Consumer credit was introduced in the 1920s as a way for Americans to be able to purchase durable goods that were outside of their means of income. It allowed households to acquire necessary appliances for daily living, such as the toaster, the vacuum cleaner, the refrigerator, and the washer-dryer. These were appliances that were new to the market at that time and very sought after. And here's a general idea of installment loans. So a business would hand the consumer a line of credit so that they could purchase durable goods on installment, meaning that they would do payments monthly, and once they would completely pay everything off, they would eventually own it. But to pay it, they could pay interest towards the principal to eventually own it. And these are some of the implications of the introduction of consumer credit in the 1920s. Companies started to advertise the ability to arrange payments for durable goods in store. This meant that public perception about these goods changed, and they were seen as easily attainable and as a necessity in the household. Because of this, these durable goods grew in popularity significantly in the 20s. Future income. Future income could be used to qualify yourself for a loan, so this made it very easy for those with high income in those times to get all of these durable goods. Deficit spending. Households did not mind accruing debt because it was credit card debt and not tangible like cash, but at the end of the day, it was still debt, and this was all this was due in part because of just not knowing enough of how credit truly worked. It was relatively new, so people didn't know how to use it responsibly. Here's an overview just to give some perspective about the severity of the situation in the 1920s. 92% of the assets held by building and loan associations were mortgage loans in 1920. The amount of loan increase was $360 million from 1922 to 1924 in just 2 years, reported by the federal land banks. And the annual debt increase was $133 million from 1922 to 29, with electric refrigerators alone. And here's just another look of the economy back in the 1920s. Conservatism. Before the 1920s, a lot of America was very conservative and very careful with their spending. But once the consumer credit was introduced, conservatism was practically absent from society, which led to overspending. Goods could not be fulfilled due to demand. More volume could not be purchased once demand surpassed resources. There's a certain point where debt reaches a ceiling, and the country can no longer continue to make more volume because of a lack of resources, and because of the overspending, we eventually reached that ceiling and surpassed that ceiling. Consumers were not educated, like mentioned earlier. Consumer credit was new, and consumers did not know how to use credit responsibly. And the labor force was too large. The perceived prosperity led to over unemployment, which eventually burdened the business owners. And here's an overview of the market crash. During the market crash, there was high levels of unemployment. Businesses could not afford to keep a large staff, otherwise they would shut down. Stock value, company value dropped for many, leaving investors without money because all of these were liquid assets. Failing banks were left without money from low cash reserves. Remember, people were taking out money as soon as they heard of the crash. Income decrease. This just ties in with everything else. Business owners could not pay fair wages even if they wanted to. The business owner, even as a business owner, was also struggling financially, not just the average American citizen. With all things considered, we go back to the question: could the crash have been avoided in 1929? And from what I've read, I believe yes. There was an overconfidence in spending capability, and that was a major reason that the United States fell into this situation. Liabilities weren't seen as troublesome because they weren't acquired through cash. Like mentioned earlier, there was just there just wasn't enough education to consumers and investors about how credit could affect them in the long term, because it was just so new. Industries overemployed and overproduced goods based off of installment loan revenues. Companies were using they were looking at their revenues off of installment loans, just assuming that would be their major source of income for the coming years. And like I said earlier, investors and households had too much liquid assets. Thank you for sticking around, and here are my references. Thank you again for staying till the end.